actually particularly honored to be the only male speaker up here tonight, today. That's quite an honor. When people talk about women's rights and women's issues, they often talk first about reproductive freedom. And no one supports reproductive freedom more than I, or more than any of the other people that you've heard speak. In fact, I was very, very proud to be with the governor, Terry McAuliffe, at the moment he vetoed a bill that would defund Planned Parenthood. And we're going to sustain that veto on the House floor. People talk about equal pay for equal work, and that's vitally important. Economic issues. Democrats have put forth bill after bill to raise the minimum wage. And for the second year in a row, and I've only been there 2 years, I've introduced a bill for paid family medical leave. Because I don't think a pregnant woman should have to go back to work the next day. So this is the second year I brought it. I said that to the Republicans who control the committee, and they liked my bill so much that they didn't just table it, they had it passed by indefinitely, which is a way of saying, Mark, we never want to see you with this bill again. So I'm going to introduce it next year. Like Senator Warren, I persist. And I'm really glad Atima brought this up because, and Laura, you as well, the issue that really often isn't discussed, particularly by people in political power, is issues of violence. Domestic violence and sexual violence. And I think one of the reasons people don't talk about it is it's a downer. No one wants to think about it. No one wants to talk about it. We know that 1 in 4 women are going to be sexually assaulted or be victims of domestic violence. And we don't want to think about it, so we don't talk about it. And sometimes I think there's this idea that doesn't happen in my family. That happens to those people of that economic class, or that live in a certain area or act a certain way or a certain ethnicity, whatever. Well, I'm here to tell you it happens everywhere. And I know this because it happened in my own family. Many of you know the story of my sister who was murdered by her husband. And know that for 20 years I've been an activist for victims of domestic violence and sexual violence, because it happens everywhere. And I think the worst thing is that people don't talk about it, and it's hard to talk about. But you know, if someone robs you, pickpockets you, right? Everyone's, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, you're pickpocketed or held up at gunpoint outside the 7-Eleven, that's terrible. And that's it. But when a woman is a victim of sexual assault, we know the questions. Why were you out there at that time of night? Why were you wearing that? Why were you with him? Why were you drinking so much? It's if a woman doesn't have a right to wear what she wants and be where she wants and, heck, you know, have a good drink with a friend. These are basic rights, human rights. Hillary Clinton said women's rights are human rights. And we've got to stop blaming the victim. In fact, we probably shouldn't even call them victims. We should call them survivors. Because when you talk about a victim, you think of the act, and you think of the person while they're down. But the people who have survived domestic violence and sexual violence are very strong, powerful people. We need to lift them up. And even though it's hard to do, encourage people to come out and tell their stories. For 3 or 4 years now, every single year, and I encourage everyone to come, I've gone to the Rally Against Rape. This is put forward by Caroline Romano. It's in Roslyn. It's, I think, the last Thursday in April. Look it up on the internet. But if you go there, you hear woman after woman, and a few men too, but mostly women, tell their stories. Tell how they were sexually assaulted. Tell how she didn't think that he was that kind of guy, or she didn't want to tell anyone, or she hasn't told anyone. And the more we keep this quiet, the less likely we are to stop these bastards from doing what they do. So we got to speak out about it. Some 90% of sexual assaults are committed by people who've done it before. And the more we talk about it, the more we can do something about it. And a bill that I introduced that Terry McAuliffe is going to sign into law is a bill that actually allows rape kits to be stored a little bit longer, because under current law, they can be destroyed when a victim's 20 years old. And I think it's very hard to pursue a prosecution if you've been raped as a child against maybe a step-parent. It's very hard to do that by the age of 20, and the legislation extends it to 28, and actually you can file a letter and it can be extended 10 years, it can go on further. So this is something that's going to be done throughout Virginia. And something else I'm even more proud of, and I have to, of course, say the two people who primarily I worked with, two great women in Northern Virginia, Senator Barbara Favola and Arlington County Board Member Katie Crystal. The three of us worked together to bring 24/7 sexual assault nurse examiners right here to Northern Virginia. Let me explain what this is, because not everyone knows. A woman sexually assaulted, it's important to keep the evidence, and it's obviously not a very pleasant thing for someone who's just undergone sexual assault. It's unpleasant, but it's necessary to catch and put away some of these terrible people. And currently, a woman can show up at the hospital and might have to wait all night long. And just think about a survivor and what she's just undergone and the pain she's gone through. And now she just wants to take a shower and go home, but now she has to wait hours and hours and hours for a nurse. Well, with the help of a federal grant and some Virginia money, Katie and Barbara and I worked together, and in about 2 months or so, we're going to have 24/7 sexual assault nurse examiners right here in Northern Virginia, the Nova Fairfax Hospital. That's a big deal. It's very, very important for survivors. And let me just say this. People ask me all the time, Mark, what can we do? What can we do to fight Trump? What can we do to help Democrats? I go to all these rallies, I hear all these words, but what can I do? So I'm going to give you something personal and something political. Let me start with something personal. If you know someone, and I'm sure you all do, it's 1 in 4, if you know someone who is a survivor of sexual assault, encourage people to tell their stories. Because it is not the survivor's fault. It is never the survivor's fault. And we got to take the stigma out of this and go after the bad guys for who they are. So that's number one. You can do that personally. Very, very important. And politically, I'm just going to say it, help us elect more Democrats. Because on choice, on paid family medical leave, on all these issues, the Democrats are constantly standing for women's rights, and the Republicans simply aren't. And we've got to elect a Democratic governor. We've got to elect a Democratic lieutenant governor. And we've got to go downstate and pick up some more seats in the House of Delegates and do that. Join your local political party. Join, help us. We need your help, because if all of us work together, we're right on this. We actually have the majority. Hillary Clinton learned the hard way that you need more votes, apparently, to win than just 3 million, right? Women get paid, what, 76% on the dollar? Hillary Clinton wins by 3 million votes and she still doesn't get to be president. Something is wrong with our system here. And that means that we have to work all the harder and fight the harder and take back our country. So thank you, boys. Thank you, everyone, for having me.